Be Wealthy and Smart, episode 364.
Step into a world of wealth and financial freedom without budgets, boredom, or bosses on Be Wealthy and Smart. And now, here's your host, Linda P. Jones.
Welcome to Be Wealthy and Smart. I'm Linda P. Jones, America's Wealth Mentor, empowering women and men worldwide to financial freedom. On today's show, we're going to talk about overseas stocks and what countries outside of the U.S. have been performing really well. We have a lot of international listeners here. This podcast reaches people in 172 countries. In my heart of hearts, what I want to do is make a difference for wealth on a global basis. So today, we're going to focus just on you folks outside of the U.S. And for people who live inside the U.S., this is for you too, because you might want to think about adding some companies, sectors, stocks outside of the U.S. in your portfolio because there's some very strong performance there. So the exciting thing is to really talk about how we can reach higher levels of compounding. And from a wealth building perspective, as you know, compounding is it. Compounding is where it's at. And you need to focus on how are you compounding your portfolio? What rates are you able to get? Can you get double-digit rate returns? Because being in the stock market over the long term has usually been a place where we can count on about a 10% average annual return over the long term. So we're going to talk about where outside of the U.S. you might be able to get some strong performance. And again, these would be considered sectors. So this would fit in the sector category of your asset allocation, which would be 10% of your total portfolio or less. And if you're going to consider investing in any of these things, which I'm not recommending, I'm simply reporting, be sure to check with your financial advisor, be sure that it matches your risk tolerance and all of that, because when things are in a sector or more concentrated, they are going to have more fluctuation, more volatility. And so you want to be aware of that. And that's why I recommend it only in a small portion of your portfolio, if at all. This chart comes to us from Investors Business Daily and is called Overseas Stock. And these are funds that invest in overseas stocks. So they got this from Lipper Incorporated. So Lipper is a company that looks at performance and reported that to Investors Business Daily, and Investors Business Daily then printed this. All right, so where in the world has the best performance been in the last year for 2017? Because this is through the end of 2017. Where in the world? Well, two countries in particular have done almost neck and neck the same 44% performance for the last year. Tremendous performance. On a one-year basis, it was actually India. They call it the India region that performed the best on a one-year basis, up 44.49%, just beating China region by a nose at 44.03%. So less than 0.5% difference. Both were up over 44% in 2017. Well done. That's incredible, and what growth we're seeing there. On a 3-year average basis, the best overseas stock fund category was actually Japan, and that was up 13.73%. India was up 11.76%, and China was up third at 11.21%. On a 5-year basis, Japan, again, had the best 5-year average at 13.7% average annual return, beating the India region up 12.88%, and China at 9.3%. On a 10-year average basis, Japan, again, 6.12% for a 10-year average annual return, beating Pacific, excluding Japan, up 4.23%, and then the Pacific region up 3.69%. On a 15-year basis, we see India leading at 15.27% average annual return for 15 years. Spectacular returns. Well done, India. And Latin America following at 12.52% for a 15-year average, and China number 3 at 12.16%. Really interesting trends to see that India and Japan, as well as China, have been really strong leaders. You do have the Pacific region also doing extremely well. And second to India for a 15-year average is Latin America at 12.52%, and then China at 12.16%. Then we have other emerging markets at 11.74 for 15 years, and Pacific without Japan, 11.62. The European region came in at 8.93% for 15 years. If we look just at last year, as I said, India and China were right neck and neck at 44+%. Then we also had Pacific ex-Japan, so the Pacific region without Japan, up 39.66%. Then we had emerging markets up 34.49%. Those would be smaller markets, typically the BRICS countries like Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And then we have the Pacific region up 33.6%. We have the Japan market up 27.77%. We have Latin America, should have been next, at 28.17%. And we have the European region at 24.4%. Overall, when you look at world equity, and they have a diversified world equity index that they're looking at, on a one-year basis, it was up 28.52%, on a 3-year average 8.55%, 5-year average 8.02%, 10-year average for world equity 2.89%, and 15-year average for world equity 9.31%. So really interesting trends. We're seeing India, Japan, China in particular have some really interesting performance. Of course, the European region would be a more mature region, more mature companies. India and China would have more up-and-coming companies. And I think that there is more growth there, and certainly something that you might want to consider in the sector portion of your asset allocation. So I will post this on my website at lindapjones.com. While you're there, if you want to pick up my 11 quick financial tips to boost your wealth, there are 11 quick things anybody can do to get to financial freedom faster. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, please hit that subscribe button and leave a review. I love to hear what you think of the podcast over on iTunes or on Stitcher Radio. Please leave me a review and let me know what you think of the podcast, and if there's any other topics you'd like me to cover. You can also connect with me on Twitter at Linda P. Jones, and let me know any questions that you would like me to cover on the podcast. I'd love to hear from you. That's all for today. Until next time, live the good life and be wealthy and smart.
Thank you for listening to Be Wealthy and Smart with Linda P. Jones. Share the wealth and tell your family and friends about the show. Check out our website, blog, and social media for more riches at www.bewealthyandsmart.com.